Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and if Dungeons and Dragons truly revolutionary player safety, truly revolutionary concept of alignment, player character alignment, is the greatest player safety tool that's ever been written, and that everything that has been written since is massively ineffective, right, comparatively, and actually has turned out to be pretty dangerous. Right, so the reason why we're talking about this today is that I did an article, I did a video that talked about how Kids on Brooms had abandoned alignment within its tabletop role-playing game, the way the vast majority of tabletop role-playing games today have abandoned alignment, saying that, oh, alignment's such an antiquated idea. Who needs that on their sheet, right? But then had to go and double back and build a whole bunch of safety rules, which made their game massively narratively insincere to its source material, to its indirect source material, right? And so one of the commenters on that video said, his first name was Eigner. He said, "Hey, is alignment a player safety tool? It's a great concept." It's a fantastic question. Let's dig into it, right? It's a really, totally valid, wonderful question. Is alignment a player safety tool? Well, first of all, we have to acknowledge that in 1974, when alignment was put into the game, okay, into Dungeons and Dragons, the concept of player safety tool didn't even exist, okay? Now, does that mean it wasn't a player safety tool? No, right? Why not? Well, first of all, You'll get it here. I'm gonna be the first person saying this and the last person saying this. Dungeons and Dragons is so much more than a game. It is really a vector for philosophy, a vector for art, a vector for narrative, a vector for relationships. It's incredible. It really is a deep element of Americana, and it's truly incredible. So, in order to understand why alignment, a concept that was built into a game far before the term player safety even existed, right, could be a player safety tool, is the U.S. Constitution, right? So the U.S. Constitution, we now have the right to privacy. Right to privacy was completely like the founding peoples of America absolutely did not have any idea about the right to privacy or how important it would be, right? And they didn't really build it into the Constitution in any way, right? But now going back, the government and the people of America have really placed the right to privacy there, saying, considering the full intent of the founders, right to privacy can be inferred, right? And I think alignment is the same way, that Gary Gygax knew there would be a need for player safety and built in alignment into the game, and just said very clearly, all right, said, listen, your player character is going to be lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good, or they can be lawful neutral, or chaotic neutral. And if you want to play a character who murders indiscriminately and is evil, you have no place here, right? You'll find no place for that character within Dungeons and Dragons. And that simple choice was, in my opinion, the most powerful player safety tool ever devised. And here's why. What are the most prominent safety tools that have come up since alignment? Two of them primarily. Lines and Veils, okay, and the X card, right? But the biggest one is the Lines and Veils has turned out to be massively dangerous, right? Because we now know, sitting in 2020, that between about 2013, maybe 2014, and 2020, there were a whole bunch of dungeon masters and game masters who were like, oh, there's no alignment in here. Let's all talk about all your traumas openly and publicly, right? Literally open communication in session 0, and let's talk about everything that triggers you as a person. It was massively unsafe, right? We know that now, right? And so here, it's totally intended well, but Lines and Veils turned out to be far more dangerous than alignment ever did, right? Now, I know what people were saying. They're saying, hey, Scott, alignment is in the game, right? But alignment is in the game, but there was a lot of D&D games that weren't safe. Well, here's why, right? I don't know if you noticed, but since easily the 1980s, this conversation started in the 80s with people saying we don't need alignment, right? And then saying you can ignore it in your game, right? And as soon as that was removed, there were a lot of people who played D&D and ignored alignment, right? And a lot of DMs did not use alignment. They did not take player characters from players when they had done things to make them drop to an evil alignment, right? So it wasn't that alignment wasn't a massively successful, massively effective player safety tool, which it always was, and now it's turned out to be far more effective than the much more modern, more informed safety tools like lines and veils, which caused a ton of players a lot of trauma at the table. We know that now, thanks to game designers like Jennifer Kretschmer, right? Who's like, hey, maybe it's not a great idea to pull all your table players into a room and ask them to talk about their traumas openly, right? Yeah, now that we know that, that seems like a super bad idea, right? Like, now, nobody has an excuse. I've been saying Session Zero was a terrible idea from day one, right? Like, but so basically, the reason why D&D games have had player safety issues is not because alignment wasn't a fantastic player safety tool. It's arguably, in my opinion, by far the best safety tool that's ever been built for the game, ever, without exception, right? The issue was that the tool was not used correctly. And that has nothing to do with alignment, right? Because the reality is, lines and veils and X card, if they're not used correctly, they're not going to be effective player safety tools, right? So saying that, a player safety tool was built and then it wasn't used or was used incorrectly, it's not a good player safety tool, is incorrect, right? The reality is, if you take a player safety tool and you use it exactly the way it's intended, exactly the way it's explained to be used, okay, and it fails, then it's a bad player safety tool. But if somebody makes a player safety tool and people ignore it or they don't use it correctly as it was written, raw, rules as written, right, then that's the issue, right? That is the issue. So it is my contention that alignment is the greatest player safety tool ever written, and that now, sitting in 2021, no one has built a better player safety tool than alignment since, in full knowledge of all the player dangers we have. Pretty interesting. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the subject. Let me know in the comments below if you think Gary Gygax's alignment is actually the greatest player safety tool ever created, or if it doesn't even qualify as a player safety tool, or it was never a good player safety tool. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.